people always ask me, they'll say, well, why'd you change the names? I said, well, save Vitro and Amplifon and save Tennessee if you still ask me that.
That's a great question. We get the name all the time, and no, we are not a Vegas-based organization.
Proprietary software that can help map the entire land area that we're looking at to basically look and see where the issues may be quicker, faster, and safer.
This is the Oil and Gas Contractors Connect podcast with your host, Ryan Ray.
Welcome to another edition of Oil and Gas Contractors Connect, the show that brings you upstream, midstream, downstream, any stream that has to do with oil and gas. You can find the contractors, the vendors, the people doing the work right here on this show. As always, this show is sponsored by R2 Global. If you have engineering, surveying, land, GIS needs, be sure to contact the folks at R2 Global by going to GoR2.com. That's GOR, the number 2.com. Today we have on guest Paul Cones, who is the president of CourthouseDirect.com. That's CourthouseDirect.com. We'll be sure to link to that in the show notes so you can check them out. Paul, thank you for coming on the show today.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Oh, okay, so Courthouse Direct sounds like it's a pretty clear-cut title, but walk us through who is CourthouseDirect.com, what do you guys do, and where do you fit into the larger oil and gas industry?
Well, our company has been in business for 37 years, and we really started as researchers doing research mainly for engineers and attorneys and surveyors. And as we progressed, what we were able to do is start building databases. So back in 1996, we actually were the first company in the nation to put a grantor or grantee index on the internet. And from there, we started building geographic databases, which allowed our researchers to be able to search by legal descriptions and by also by grantor grantee. And then back a few years after that, we started building title plants for title insurance companies. And so we had done that in Texas. In fact, we were up to building 82 title plants in Texas. We had 15 title plants in New Mexico. And then 7 months ago, we sold our title insurance company side of our business, but we kept building databases for the oil and gas industry. And if you're an oil and gas landman and you need to do title research, you can use our service to just go in and use the grantor or grantee index, which is actually free to use, or you can assign into our title plants and do a more in-depth search in the county. So that's kind of a quick snapshot of what we're doing. We have a lot of other tools on our website that we make available to our landmen. I'll just mention a couple of them if you don't mind. One is a lease alert tool. So you can sign up on our lease alert, and when there's new oil and gas filings in a county, then as a landman or a producer or an investor, you can get emails that say, these are the latest oil and gas leases that were filed in the county that I'm interested in. And for instance, if you have a landman in the field that's doing research on Mr. Smith and you see that Mr. Smith just got leased out from under you, then you can stop your research and save some money there. And then we also have another tool which we call a lease check tool. So for an oil and gas landman, a traditional lease check is where you go in and you find out who, let's say, the current surface owner is, and then you run a chain of title back until you find a mineral reservation or you find a mineral deed, and then that's where you would be able to pick up your mineral chain. And what we've done is created this search tool so you can go into a portion of the county, put in the survey name or the abstract number or perhaps a section and block if you're out in West Texas, and then from there you can see the latest activity in that area of the county, and therefore you can see, okay, this is a hot area, and this is an area that I'm trying to search in, and it's again a quick way to do a lease check. So again, just our focus when we began the company was really servicing the title, the engineer surveying community, also the legal community. Have a lot of appraisers too that use us, and then from there we started building title plants for title insurance. Again, sold that part of our company 7 months ago. Now our total focus, I would say, is really oil and gas and providing the tools people need on the oil and gas side.
Okay, great. So let me ask a couple questions here. First off, looking at your website, which is again courthousedirect.com, you have a map of the United States, and since the show talks about anything oil and gas related, we have other basins and plays. You mentioned Texas; it sounds like you got that pretty well covered. But let's talk about Powder River, Bakken, Marcellus, maybe the Haynesville. Are you guys? Do you have records for those areas as well, or is it for oil and gas stuff mainly just Texas at this point?
Well, it's Texas and New Mexico. Lee and Eddy County in New Mexico are very hot right now, and so we have those databases. But Texas has really been our focus. Of course, we know Texas is a big, oil and gas state in itself. But what we do have that's a good tool for the landmen is we do have a tool on our site. We call it a property search or an asset search on our site. So let's say, for instance, you're looking at an oil and gas lease and you're looking at a signature on the oil and gas lease for John Smith. Well, you think that John Smith moved out to California. You could actually use this property history and property reports on our site to pull up, let's say, a mortgage in California. Then you can compare the signature on the mortgage to the signature on the oil and gas lease and say, yeah, that's my guy. So even though we may not have the in-depth records in these other areas, we do have some other tools that landmen can use. We also have on our website a GIS platform that you can go into different states and look at our GIS information, and it does cover some other states like Colorado and some stuff in New Mexico New Mexico, Colorado, we have a little bit in Arkansas, but again, we're in some ways in terms of our GIS platform. We're building these tools as we go, and what's really interesting, I think, on the GIS side is that we overlay the tax information in the county onto the Google map, and when we put the tax information in there, let's say, for instance, you're running a pipeline across an area, then what you're able to do on our GIS tool is actually click on tracts that you want to send a mailer out, because you have to do a right of entry to be able to maybe cross someone's land. And you could actually create a mailing list for the taxpayers that are along a certain route. And that allows you to maybe save some time in terms of how you're doing your research. Also, since we have the pipeline information in there, if let's say, for instance, I'm going to start researching a tract and I can see, oh, this is the operator for this pipeline, 9 times out of 10, the pipeline operator is the owner of the pipeline. So it helps, I think, any kind of landman or right-of-way agent or any abstractor that's doing research to see, okay, I've got a good starting point. Here's the pipeline. I can find the record for the pipeline, and that gets me into the chain of title so I can start doing my work.
You mentioned something there that's quite interesting a few minutes ago, or a few seconds ago, rather. You said that you could track a landowner, for a landman, hey, this is my guy, I moved out of California. But also that might, we've been on projects before in the past where you had maybe a landowner who doesn't want to negotiate with you for a pipeline, for an easement, but they might be a large landowner. So I could see that tool working to benefit your pipeline routing as well. If you say that, Mr. Ryan Ray doesn't want to negotiate with us, where all is he on this, 60-mile route so we can try to route around him?
Well, certainly anytime you're negotiating, you kind of like to know the person you're negotiating with, right? So another tool that we've built in, and this was mainly on the title insurance side, but I'd like for all the landmen to think about this, is that if you're negotiating with someone, we have a tool on our website. We call it an adverse lien search, also known as an involuntary lien search. So for instance, if and I don't know if I'm answering your question about rerouting your line, but this is something that kind of comes to mind right here, is that if I see that the party that I'm dealing with has, let's say, a couple of IRS liens filed against them, or maybe an abstracted judgment, well, that's helpful information. Well, if I know this person probably wants to pay back the IRS, then I know that I'm in a little bit different position than if I were dealing with someone that, if I looked at the public record and knew that, they didn't have these obligations, then you might negotiate a little bit differently. So, but again, I think as researchers, what we're looking for always is to get the most information we can in front of us, because it's just like when we do title research and we're using a title plant, I'll just kind of give you an example. I had we were sponsoring a luncheon one time, and the speaker of the luncheon said, "Well, Paul, I'm going to tell these landmen that not to totally trust these online records." And I think he thought that would offend me, but I said, "Look, these online tools are great because what you're able to do is you're able to perform the title research all the way using all the online records. And if you have a contract with your client that says you must research the courthouse, then by the time you get to the courthouse, you will have probably 95 or 98% of the work already done. And then when you're in the courthouse, you would spend maybe one day in the courthouse versus maybe 2 weeks or 3 weeks in a courthouse. So the savings on driving back and forth to the county and the savings just on the windshield time and all of that could be used on doing research just makes so much more sense. And then the title plants that we provide online, where you can actually go in and you can put in a survey name or an abstract number or a section block and bring up all the activity in that area, and then build the run sheet and then drop it into an Excel spreadsheet and then pull all the documents related to that. That is a huge time saver. And in fact, what we've recently done that I'm very excited about is we give the landman the capability to be able to access these title plants by the hour. So when you sign into the title plant by the hour, immediately you get an invoice that you can charge back to your customer, and you're able to go in there and very easily, build the run sheet, save the run sheet to an Excel, pull all the documents you need. So you're kind of in the title plant and back out of it. It's kind of like the way I picture it is like walking into going into a county and seeing the title plant across the street, and you say, well, I'm going to do my research here in the courthouse, and then I'll jump over to the title plant, or vice versa, maybe go to the title plant first and then go to the courthouse. So that's the title plant by the hour. It kind of gives you that power or that flexibility to be able to do that.
Yeah, and I think what I'm getting at is definitely some of the stuff you talked about. But in oil and gas for so long, we've wanted access to more information, and yet we've kind of neglected the technology that we need to get it done. And it seems like you guys are bringing a service that landman, right-of-way agents, et cetera, can look at this and things that 10, 15 years ago they go, God, I wish we had access to this information to be able to query and ask these type of questions. Your service is providing that, which isn't even its core service. Its core service is obviously access to the records, but it's good to see that as the industry is progressing and we're bringing on more records and we're bringing on GIS tools. That we'll be able to do things that historically we just couldn't do. We couldn't figure out where these landowners were, where they went, how they moved around, what they were doing. But your tool is allowing access to that. Now, you mentioned a minute ago you really started out with surveyors and things like that, and you shifted to oil and gas, and you've sold one of your business units. What was the driving force behind that, and for you guys to kind of make your shift to be mainly an oil and gas type business now?
Well, I started my career as an oil and gas landman, and that was back in like 1980, and had worked, for a couple of years as a landman, and then the oil business crashed, back in 81, 82, and so my background has always been oil and gas, and it's kind of funny with the things that we've done. Where when we started building our grantor grantee indexes, we really did it for our own benefit because we wanted to have these tools available to us in-house. And from there, we ended up making it available to the general public. The same way we did with the title plants that we built. We knew that we had 16 researchers that work with us. And if we could build a geographic database, that would make everyone more efficient in terms of how they were doing their work. And in terms of why we're focused mainly on the oil and gas side now, is because what we're doing, I think, that differentiates ourselves from the other folks out there is when we go into a county, we scan every piece of paper we can in the county. So that would be the deed records, the oil and gas records, the mechanic lien records. Because if you're doing a well site opinion, in a county, you're not only going to need the last 20 or 30 years, you're going to have to go back to sovereignty, and you're going to need to look at every single document in the county. It just so happens that our data manager is a certified petroleum landman. So she understands, and we understand because we're all researchers here, what are the tools that you need as a landman to be able to do your job effectively. And I think that's where we come from. And it's the tools that we use internally to do our work, because we still do research for engineers and surveyors. But we know that if we're going to build a tool that's going to allow us to be effective as researchers, well, it's the same tool that we're going to make available to our pipeline agents and our abstractors and oil and gas landmen that are out there in the field.
Okay, without giving away clients' names or anything like that, just out of curiosity, you mentioned landmen a lot. You can have landmen that are in-house. You can have landmen that are working for a third-party vendor like myself or other third-party vendors. Generally, have you found that you guys are being used more by in-house guys or third-party contractors?
Well, we know that you have a lot of different kinds of landmen out there, and so we have I would just tell you, we have a very diverse clientele beyond the oil and gas industry. We have, a lot of, bankers and appraisers and surveyors and all these different people that everyone needs some information out of the courthouse. But as it relates to the landmen themselves, we have a lot of in-house landmen that use us, but they're still going to outsource the searching to that local landman that is going to be able to do the actual searching for them. And it's kind of funny because we were in New Mexico over the weekend, and we had someone that approached us and said, "Well, Paul, are you trying to put us out of business?" This was a landman, and when I hear that, I really kind of I don't believe that's what we're trying to do. What we're trying to do is give the landman the tools, whether you're in-house or in the field, to be able to do your job effectively. And I would tell you that it doesn't matter how advanced we get electronically and all of that, someone needs to be able to interpret the documents and be able to use those documents in a way that makes the most sense. So, you have some people out there that think, there's going to be a point where you just click a button and everything's going to spit out and you're going to get everything you need. Well, there's still a lot of handwritten records out there, right? And I've not heard of any GIS platform or not GIS, but any kind of artificial intelligence that can read a handwritten record. We have a hard time reading them as real people. So I think that the idea of the landman maybe going away or something like that because there's these electronic records that exist out there, I really just don't buy that at all. But in terms of the landmen that are out there using us, it is the people in the field that are the individual landmen. It's the brokers that are using us, and then also to the landmen that are in the office. Now, I mentioned that we do scan these records that are in the courthouse, and the first thing we tell our scanning crews, and we have about 10 scanning crews that are in courthouses every day, is the first thing that we do is we go and we collect all the handwritten grantor-grantee indexes. So even if we have an electronic index in the county, we also are going to collect the handwritten grantor-grantee indexes, because that's kind of you might call it the belt and suspenders, So every once in a while you're looking at a record and you go, you know what, something isn't quite right here. Well, you can go back and look at the original handwritten record that's in the clerk's office to be able to say, yeah, I see where a number was transposed or something like that. So that's another way we try to differentiate ourselves.
Okay. The one question I've tried to ask everyone is, and it might be a little bit different for you guys because you're servicing so many clients, but we'll try to get it in here. Before you start a project or before someone maybe uses your tool, what are the things or one thing or a couple of things that you say, you know what, hey, these are the things that you need to be aware of or that you need to try to utilize or directions you might want to go, so that's 3 months, 6 months, 9 months from now, you're not dealing with a major problem by starting this process out early on?
Well, one thing that we've tried to do is we've done a lot of work in terms of our blogging and if you're on our courthousedirect.com website, it's not real obvious, but if you go down the bottom left-hand corner, there is a button that says blog. Well, if you click on that, we've got a lot of articles that we've written about research, and particularly we have we have some ebooks online. One of our ebooks has to do with, we call it the Landman Survival Guide. And so if you've got somebody new on your crew that you're really kind of bringing along, teaching them the land business, that's a really great tool to be able to share with them. And so what we try to do is we have these different blogs that we try to educate people. And then in addition to that, we also have a YouTube channel, which is Courthouse Academy, where I've given presentations, usually, 40 minutes to an hour, online presentations about how to use our website and all. So what we're trying our very best to do, is to give people enough information up front as to the tools that we have available to them, so that they're not wasting time and they're actually being able to accomplish the things that they want to accomplish. If you kind of look at our website, we're, as much as anything, we're almost like kind of like a dashboard, So you're on there. You can go in there and go in and get your work done, hopefully as quickly as you can. And what we learn from people is the first day or two they're on our site, we may get a question or two, but hopefully it's intuitive enough that, they found out where the grantor-grantee index was. They know how to go and download the documents. If they choose to access our data, our title plans, they can do that. But what we want to do is really, as much as possible, educate the user, give them all the tools they need to be able to be effective. And we want to hear from our customers. If there's things that we're doing right, that's nice to hear. But what we really want to hear about is what are the things that we can do better, or how could we improve the user experience so that the landman can do their job as effectively as they can. And that's what we hope to do every day, is to listen to our customers.
Okay, good deal. With that being said, is there anything that we did not hit on that you want to make sure that you reference or mention before we get you out of here today?
On our GIS platform, we have different sets of data that I think the landmen should know about. One would be a well report. Also, the W-1s are on here. Also, if people want to pull up the actual plat that's filed with the Railroad Commission, you can look at that. So just keep in mind that if you're about to start a project, or you're about to go search a certain area, if you'll go to our GIS map, and on the homepage of Courthouse Direct, there's a button there that says search by map. It's a red dot that's kind of in the middle of the screen. And when you click on that, you can actually go into a county. You could actually search by a zip code, but typically what you're able to do is go in and put in the abstract number, and that drills you down to the area that you're interested in. And I know as a researcher, I always want to have a map to start with. So that's a good resource, and I just always want to point that out, because sometimes people struggle to kind of get their bearings in an area, and to be able to go to a map and get started that way can be very useful. So I just want to make sure that everyone knows about that.
Okay, great. And we will link to that in the show notes, courthousedirect.com. You also have a Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and LinkedIn. We'll try to get those in the show notes as well. If not, they are on the bottom right of the website, which is courthousedirect.com. Paul, thank you so much for your time today. It was a pleasure talking to you guys. Sounds like y'all got some really good stuff going on there, and a valuable tool for the industry. So we appreciate you coming on.
Thank you very much, and I hope you have a good day.